All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Buddhist Biohacker podcast. I am Lisa Gunshore, and I'm your host. I'm a multi-generational psychic medium and a functional Ayurvedic practitioner. And I'm so happy to have two of my dearest friends with me today to talk about a pretty big subject. And what we're going to be talking about today is the matriarch, and really turning the big wheel in our homes because of where we are today versus where we were 2 weeks ago. So before we dig into the meat of all of this, I want to introduce both of my dear friends and colleagues, and we'll start with Brooke Rickford. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Well, my name is Brooke, and I am a stay-at-home mom. And I also have a blog where I just kind of write about travel and beauty. And I also sell for beauty counters. So I'm into all things clean and, free of nasty stuff in it and whatnot. So I'm trying, but it's a fun side gig as well.
Nice. And Janae. Hi, Janae.
Hello. So I am a yoga instructor here in Colorado, as well as an intuitive guide, but I love doing channeled readings for people. And honestly, as my job, because isn't that like the first question that everybody asks you? And I'm actually hoping a side effect of everything that's going on right now is that's no longer the first question, because I have been in the in-between for a really long time and just trying to find my way. And you're always like, I don't want to raise my hand when someone's like, so what do you do? So yeah, it's just a hodgepodge, looks different every day. Sometimes it's walking dogs and sometimes it's doing readings. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and it's important to note that you're a stepmom,
Yes.
and I'm a stepmom of 4.
Yes. I'm a stepmom only of 1 though. I still I'm always like, how does she do it?
I don't know. I don't know how any of us do it. And that brings me to what we're going to talk about today. And hello to everybody who's joining us on iTunes, on Podbean, and also on YouTube. Welcome to the podcast, and please feel free to share in the comments section if there's anything that you want to share, sound off on. Today is the day to do it. So our topic for today is about the matriarch, and what has happened is we are now all at home. And even though all 3 of us are stay-at-home moms in our own way, we might be working or doing other things around that, but we are all moms at home. And we just lost our free time during the day to do what we need to do while the kids are at school and our spouses are at work, and we can do our thing. Suddenly, our thing means we have to do it in the middle of absolutely everything. And what made me think of even talking about this topic is I realized we're being thrust into a role we haven't been in for hundreds of years, really. And we also are now responsible. The matriarch, one of my good friends said this a long time ago, actually. I just love it. She told me the mom sets the tone for the day. And she's like, however you wake up in the morning is what your family is going to think and feel all day long. And that really sticks with me, because when I'm having a bad morning, it's like nothing goes right and kids are fighting and nobody got their lunch made for school and it's just a mess. But if I'm up early and everybody's up early and joyful and everything gets done, it's like everybody's joyful. And so we really do set the tone for the day. And now we're responsible for setting the tone for an entire day, everybody at home, all together. And that is crazy. So I just want to start out first by talking about like where you guys are at with this and what you're experiencing, because it's been a shift to say the least.
Yeah. Janae, did your kids start school yet?
No, I have a feeling, to be really honest, it's April 17th that they're slated to go back, but I have a feeling that they're not going to be going back. And I think it's going to be online. Online starts this week though. So I've had like mixed emotions. There's been times that I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this, and get really, really overwhelmed. And I found myself sitting out in our yard the other day, and I had to remind myself that this is just one little human being. Sometimes they feel like so much bigger than than the space they occupy, really. And he was sitting in front of me, and I had to just say, you know what, this is like enhancing my spiritual practice. Like, don't think that I'm really deep by saying that. It was literally, I just need to be present. Like, I just need to like not let the fear overwhelm me and sit here with him and listen to whatever story. And then it totally let the air like out of my tires, so to speak, rather than like running from it. Cause sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to have him do. I don't know. Like, I don't want him on electronics all day long. I don't want him, now that he's not like taking a lunch to school. I want lunch to look different. Like, you put all these like things on yourself. And hence I talked to Lisa yesterday. I like started to make a soup because that's like really good for right now. And I'm thinking, I got this. And then she's like, oh, can we talk for a second? I was like, seriously, I can't multitask. Like, we'll be eating dinner at 9 p.m. And sure enough, like, even without that distraction, I was like, it goes from me like listening to music and like being all great to I am a slow cooker. So like, this is like not my forte. And we almost did eat at 9 p.m. anyways. So it's like highs and lows all over the place. Definitely don't have any of it figured out. What about you, Brooke?
Well, my kids did go back to school last week. They started online learning, and it was interesting to say the least. I know, everyone's going to have their own style. We had basically, we gave Monday was an in-service day for the teachers to kind of prep their lesson plans for the week. So technically, we started on Tuesday. What I had done to kind of prepare was I had ordered whiteboards, just like, 8 by 10 size for each kid. And every morning as the emails came in, I would write down their assignments. And I'm not sure how old yours.
Oh my God, you're so organized.
I know. But it wasn't like, I did it because I bought them, and at first I was like, I don't know why I bought these whiteboards. I just thought if I need to write down a problem and I'll have a demonstration just like the teacher. And then I thought, no, I'm going to use them for each child to kind of just compartmentalize it for myself, because I knew that I was going to be overwhelmed. And I feel like by this weekend, the teachers either heard from other grades, this worked, this didn't work. I think the consensus was try not to send an email every day, try and send one email beginning of the week, end of the week. So I think they were playing with it, and we were kind of their experiment for the week. Because I was telling Lisa, I was trying to find information for things today, and I was going back through all of these emails from these teachers, and I don't want to delete them yet because they might have important information in there. What if they don't resend it? So I've just got all of these emails from different teachers just to try and find out when I was going to talk to you guys today. So hopefully all of the teachers around have kind of like some secret forum that they're like giving each other advice on. I don't know. I just hope that it is that way. But I definitely feel more prepared for next week. So yeah, it was just, we didn't know what to expect. It was, and that was hardest for me. I'm a preparer. Obviously, I bought whiteboards for my kids. I'm the type, I like to read a menu before I go out to dinner or lunch at a place. So this was crazy. I'm so glad we got Monday to just kind of breathe and prepare, but it was an interesting week. So yeah.
Yeah, our kids.
Lisa, have you done online yet?
Yes, so we started. Oh, Lisa, you guys did what last week as well?
No, so the kids they're on spring break right now.
Okay.
And so they're going to start April 1st. So their teachers come back on Monday still.
Okay.
But the teachers are supposed to make their lesson plans Monday and Tuesday, and then they're supposed to start on Wednesday. And because they're my stepchildren, you know, they go house to house. And so we will not have them until Friday. So I'm going to miss the beginning of all of this, but then we'll be diving deep for a whole week. And so I'm looking at, like, as a step parent, the logistics of not only do we have to manage them being at home, but we're going to have to manage them house to house, knowing what they've got done and staying engaged. And I'm not quite sure how that's going to look. My oldest is in middle school and she's pretty self-sufficient. So they're going to be doing school on Google Hangout. And so I think that's going to be good because I know she'll be on top of it. But our littler girls, the little ones, I think, you know, we're going to have to sit with them. I don't know about you guys, but just having them off, I mean, a big part of this is routine. And it's funny, my mom said she actually had to share, my mom is, you know, 70 years old, and she had to share on her work call how to work from home because she's been working from home as a contractor for a few years now. And there's a lot of people who don't even know how to work from home. So she was reminding people, like, get up, make your bed. And it reminded me, Brooke, of what we talked about in our podcast, like whatever that was 2 years ago. But we have to get up and like make our beds and get dressed. And I was watching Sex and the City and I thought, you know what, like I'm going to dress like glamorous every day, which I don't know if my stuff is glamorous in my yoga clothes, but I just was overwhelmed with the kids last week with everyone's on electronics. Nobody was picking up after themselves. Like there's piles of stuff everywhere. My husband is now doing work on 2 monitors on my kitchen table. And that just gives me like a super big heart attack. Like I don't like all this noise and stuff and people. I don't know how you guys are dealing with it because it's making me crazy.
What's your advice for going into online since you've done it?
So, I tried to keep their morning schedule as close to school as possible because it does kind of go with Lisa with what you were saying about getting in that routine. We normally would try to be out the door by 7:40 in the morning. And sometimes if they're done eating breakfast and getting ready before 7:40, they get some free time. And so I tried to keep that the same. Then, believe it or not, at like 8, we would go to the window and say the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag outside. So, you know, just like little things like that. So it kind of still felt like school. And I saw a lot of people doing that as well. And then I put timers on my phone to remind me to stop and let them have a snack, just because I know that's what they do in school as well. Like they would work until X amount of time and then they'd have snack and recess. So I would give them a break. Then we would go on to the next subject and then we'd break for lunch. And then the afternoon was just kind of a, do you have something in this subject? Or let's go outside because it was so beautiful last week. We did one of those, I don't know if you've seen these online where people are taking painter's tape to their driveways and then making lines to make it kind of look like stained glass and coloring chalk on the driveway. So we did that as like our art project, which not only got us outside, but it got them to be creative. I certainly have not been perfect at all of this. It sounds like I kind of have a routine, but I have lost my cool. I have cried. It's stressful. It's the new normal. As much as I tell my kids, I'm sorry that it's like this, but this is the way it's going to have to be. I have to remind myself that at the same time, it's just different.
Have any of your kids been scared? Like, have any of them, like, what has been their reaction to like everything going on?
My kindergartner, my daughter is kind of she just knows she's home and she knows that there's something going on, but she doesn't know a ton about it. My son went through a phase where he was very concerned that we weren't going to have hand sanitizer. We weren't going to have soap. We weren't going to have toilet paper. And I think part of it is he's in that phase where when you don't think he's listening, he is. And so we'd have the news on and I'm sure he was hearing things in the background. But outside of that, no like deep deep fear, but he did go through that, are we going to have enough and are we going to be okay phase for sure for a while. How about you guys?
It hit me when my littlest, she's 7, and I was putting her to bed and she just seemed like sad. And I was like, what's wrong? And she's like, well, I'm not going to see my friends. And so we started talking about it a little bit, me and her, and it really made me like upset because I realized there's a real grief going on now that it's sinking in. Like at first it was like, yeah, no school and I can stay up late and I can sleep. And now it definitely with the littlest has sunk in, like things are not the same as they were, and I'm not going to be able to have that social interaction. And we ended up FaceTiming her very best friend in school, and they were so cute. They talked for like 3 hours, and it was the cutest thing in the world because they're both 7. They're so cute. And they were like playing games together and FaceTiming and showing each other their rooms and like all that stuff. And that really helped like turn the energy around. But it has made me wonder, and my husband and I thought about even having a conversation with them, like, how are you guys feeling? Because, you know, soccer was canceled, you know, their extracurricular, like all the things that they were looking forward to, field days and field trips. And I mean, it's all gone. And so it definitely hit me with the little one. The other kids haven't so much said anything yet, but the little one was definitely like sad, openly sad and grieving that this was different and things were going to change. So I'm actually hoping that the online schooling will help them to feel connected again and give them a sense of normal within the abnormal. That said, the only other thing I'll say about that is their whole life is on their devices. And so we didn't grow up that way. Like we went to school. And I have noticed when they were looking at emails from their teachers, and there's a few Facebook groups started for the kids to share book reviews and things with each other. And they're definitely a different age, you guys. Like I was like, wow, like this is really no big deal to them to be virtual. It's not the same for them as it is for us. They're used to it a lot. There's a different thought process, I guess.
Yeah.
What about you, Janae? What's your stepson's?
He has been, I think it's just a different scenario kind of altogether. He is also in middle school, and we were really lucky and we were able to open enroll him and get him into a school that was not the feeder school. So it's been a big transition. I think middle school is a huge transition anyways. They're out of whack anyways that first year and probably pretty much all the way through middle school. But he had just really was missing his friends that were like going into the school he would have gone into. And then they ended up like, no one really ended up going to that school. So, but as a parent, you're always like, did I make the right decision? How am I messing up today? You know, you always have both scenarios going through your mind. I don't know if either of you guys have watched Parenthood with Steve Martin. It's really old, but I mean, I don't know if I'm the only one that does it, but like Steve Martin, he like puts his son like on second base or something, and he goes through 2 scenarios. He sees his son like catching the ball and then like standing up like at high school graduation. It was like, thanks to my dad, I'm like valedictorian, and it's like this beautiful scenario. And then the other one is he misses the ball, and then he's like being ushered with the police, and this kid is like on the top of the roof. Like that's like what happens like all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, which outcome is this going to be? So it was a big deal choosing that. And then he kind of, transitions are hard in general, but I think for him, it's a little bit more to like of an undertaking of how is he going to navigate through, how is he going to even like social situations. He's very happy kind of, I'm going to fade into the background, and he's more comfortable there. So in a lot of ways, I think this is giving him a reprieve which you're like, oh, that seems like that would be like nourishing. But then I'm like, oh my gosh, is he going to lose like some of those little bonds that were just starting to be formed? So he's definitely like, oh, I'm good. And then he's like, ooh, then he sees what life at home is actually like. And he's like, I don't know about this. Like, I think I'm like, really? Because he's the only one. So he's really seen, and he's with us. His mom is actually a police officer. And so we're not going to have him going back and forth because we don't want him to get it. Sure. So he's like really, really isolated and just like, oh man, I'm really seen over here. Maybe school isn't so bad. But I think it's good. I'm kind of happy that the day is going to be shorter, that it's only going to be 4 hours that they're on there. And to get him more involved in like the workings of the family. And we're still trying to like figure that out, but it's like, sometimes, like I said, it's really overwhelming. And then there's other times you're like, this is going to be great until you're in it.
Well, and I want to deep dive a little bit into the spiritual aspects of this and this whole idea of the matriarch, because what the image I kept getting about this whole situation is we used to be in little cottages and villages, right, with our kids. And, you know, the husband maybe went to work his craft or work the farm or go work in the village or whatever the heck he did. And we had the children and we were teaching them how to cook, how to read, how to take care of themselves. And I'm kind of wondering, like, I don't even know what I'm asking as much as I'm just sharing that, you know, what do we think about that old energy coming back up, and how do you guys think that's going to look now, like as we go forward? Because we now have a completely different family dynamic. And in some ways I think, well, it's too bad that we've depended on the schools so much for this kind of stuff. And I'm rethinking the spiritual side, because obviously, like, I've been a practitioner for years and I meditate and all these things. And I'm like, like, why am I just now that they're home thinking about how important it is to teach them how to meditate or breathe or any of these things or connect with nature, versus like, is it seriously that easy as out of sight, out of mind? So I don't know. That's like a whole bunch of questions all at once, but I just want to talk about that old, you know, that old energy that we're now reactivating in a new way.
I think it's needed. Like, first and foremost, it's really needed. I mean, even just, I'm not a teacher. I have friends that are teachers, and I'm kind of like, you know, they have let's face it, like every other year they're getting a group ushered in that's like really hard. And I think a lot of parents, I mean, we all have blinders in different areas, but are like, not my problem. And I think that we're all like, in so many ways, it is now your problem again. Like, and you're going to have to sit with that and really face what's going on. And I think that's so needed, because the more outs that we have, people just they were not doing that, you know? So I think it's really good. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Well, I've always looked at a lot of things in life as being cyclical. Some are a quick turnaround, and some are a long, slow process. And so I feel like, as you know, to what Lisa was saying, this was the time for that energy shift to come back up around, and make us kind of stop and realize what we have, how quickly it can be taken away from us, and how to depend on yourself and your family. So often now, you know, we talk about electronics and whatnot, and you know, these kids are now saying, oh, I want to be a YouTube star, or I want to be this, you know, and now maybe that shift will come back around to, I want to be in the medical profession, or I want to be a teacher, I want to be a doer, or, wow, what mom does is amazing, or what dad does is so cool, because we're just so go, 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 that this is allowing us to stop and smell the roses, if you will. And I just kind of see it as something that is scary, and it's the unknown, but it's so needed. Yeah, we needed to slow down for sure. And this just made us do it.
Well, and one thing I'm excited about is the organic flow of the schedule. The kids were out of school for the last 2 weeks, their spring break was extended. And so we really still put them to bed on a school night, and I woke them up early. In fact, I'm now deemed the fun police at my house. Yeah. And my littlest even texted me last night, and she's like, "It's true though. You're the fun police." That's what she texted me. And
a badge.
Yes, I need a badge. That's true. I should make one. But what I love about it is, even though we tried to stick to a routine, they still slept a little later, they're getting some sleep. We're able to have meals together as a family, even more than we were already doing. A couple of the kids built a puzzle with their dad last week, which I can't remember the last time they've done a puzzle. I actually cleaned off the kitchen table and just dumped a bunch of pieces and let everybody figure it out. And 3 days later it was built.
Nice.
And so I'm looking forward to the organic energy of being able to flow. I mean, they're obviously going to have a schedule for school, but I think not having to get up at 6, not having to get ready for school. The kids wear uniforms to school at my kids' school. And so being able to be themselves, wear what they want, be safe and comfortable, I think that's going to be good. So that's one thing I'm excited about with the changeover, is maybe we can spend some time teaching them life skills like cooking and exercise and things that are going to help them for the long term.
Yeah. We're really lucky. We live right by a lake. So there's a little track that's starting to get worn out around that lake as we speak. But we also are kind of lucky, which you have to have. I think this is also an opportunity for people to start to have real conversations, ask real questions, and you wouldn't have before. And it takes something as serious as this virus coming up for you to just be like, hey, this is my family and our health and our well-being. I have to ask these questions. And where I'm going with that is, he has a friend really nearby, and we're alone over here. So it is tricky with only one. You need stimulation. And I'm the only person in the house is I want the internet to go down so electronics are off. I think I'm the only person saying that, because I think if it's just not there, you're going to figure it out. And I would love that opportunity. But again, he's the only one. And so we were trying to figure out, okay, how can we have interaction, because everyone's quarantined and staying in place. But we were able to let them go on bikes yesterday, but that was after some really intense conversation with the other parents. And that's what I mean. I wouldn't have felt comfortable being how seriously are you taking this? Because in order for them to do this, I need to know that he has been quarantined, and you guys haven't been exposed for 14 days. That's something I never would have done a couple weeks ago. And it kind of gives you that permission to be in your truth and be this is the way it is. And I'm not going to be apologetic for it. And they went out and we did bikes so that that's naturally setting up that distance, and told them you have to stay on bikes. And then we also felt good about it because her child is asthmatic. So she is taking it just as seriously as we are. But then that, we could see how he was a little nervous about going out, and you're wow, you have to be mindful that this is happening, but it is going to be okay. Because then he's well, what if I get him sick? And you're you don't need to carry that worry around. It's going to be okay. And his friends had masks, and we were really lucky that they were able to meet up and bike around. But I was like so happy. I was like, that was what childhood used to be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so coming back to that, like moving back to those roots, I just love it. You know, I see even just going back to, because yeah, my husband freaked out, like we talked about, and it's like you're trying to hold this spiritual space and keeping the vibration high, and there's so many highs and lows right now. But he was definitely like, oh my God, we need 5 bags of rice. And I'm like, I think we're not like Game of Thrones over here. We're not preparing for winter. It's going to be okay. And I also think people are going to have to realize we do have to come together again. And I think there's been such a disconnect with that. That's why that's so hard for people to believe it will happen, but it will. It really will. And so, you know, I don't know where I was going with that one, but you know, he was freaking out with all the food and everything else I know now. But I was like, we're not getting a bunch of frozen food. Like, this is an opportunity, even though it takes me 6 hours to make a soup, because this is not second nature to me. I do not have it together in any way. But I love that we are going to come back to Whole Foods because we have time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Isaac used to have 20 minutes for lunch. And I was always like, gosh, that's not even time to like digest. We were sitting there yesterday and I had him, they go for chips and I'm on top of it. We're Ayurvedic. And I'm like, look, there's the quality of air. Talk about, it's kind of great that we have all the time. You can't be taken away because you're always like, oh, what's going to go back to the other house? I want you to comment on that, Lisa. Because I'm like, oh, wow, I can't really let like my freak flag totally fly because I am a step parent and I'm mindful of that. But I'm like, look, this is really what's going on. You guys need to stop eating these chips because that's the quality of air. There's air all around us. Everything's moving. We need earth-based and water and like soup. So yeah, I totally have the crazy hat in there, but it's crazy. With that being said, I sat there and so instead chips, I was like, you're doing celery and carrots. That is not exciting. But I had him start to cut it himself. This is like, you have to celebrate the successes because this makes me sound like really incredible, but this was a really big moment and it's not always happening. And so I had him cut it because I was like, you know what? Intuitively, I was like, if he's cutting this and doing this for himself, it's going to be different eating that rather than just like putting that in front of you and like including them because you have that time, coming back to the whole picture. And he sat there and he got so into it. I was like really surprised. He ended up like dicing it. I was like, okay, you're going to have to help me with the soup. So we're not eating at 9:00 at night anymore. But he was so into it. And then I had the moment of asking, I was like, this might sound weird or different, but I was like, you know how I play music a lot when I'm cooking. He's like, yeah, I do. It's like, I believe that everything you're feeling goes into that food. So you want to like transition that. If you're in a good space or you're not, if you're making food for yourself, you're putting that into your body and your body is taking it and doing all these different functions. And he's like, I don't think that sounds that weird. They can totally blow your mind sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I think there's more opportunities to have your mind blown by them because you were present.
Yeah. You're not distracted by other things and they're almost wanting that extra information from you because they're not getting it from anywhere else and they won't admit it, but they want it.
I love that you just said that information isn't coming from, that is such an opportunity. That information is not coming from anywhere else.
Yeah. We always, my husband has this thing that he says to the kids every morning. And one of it is learn something new every day. And I realized the other day, kind of into what you were saying, gosh, have they, outside of school, have they learned something new today? So I think that is an opportunity, again, to think outside the box. We have more time to be creative. I mean, like the things that these parents have come up with, I know, Lisa, I don't know if you've heard, because you've got your youngest is 7, they've been doing those neighborhood bear hunts where people have been putting teddy bears in their window so that families can drive around and look for them, which is just like, why weren't we doing that before all of this happened? Because that would be a fun family activity on a winter day, you know, when you can't play outside. But someone thought of it now, and it's such a cute idea. And we saw a couple of kids this morning with their dad on a walk, and they had their notebooks out, and we put a couple bears in the window. So they were by our house making check marks, and the kids ran up to the window and knocked on the glass and waved at the kids because they just thought, oh my gosh, someone found our bears, and hi, I can't come outside and see you, but I'll say hello through the window. It was so sweet, and they were excited about it. And I just thought, how fun. Like, why, let's keep doing this after all of it. It's such a creative idea. And so just like the different things you've seen online from people, the ideas they've come up with for crafts or science experiments that you can do with stuff in your cabinet, you know, like, why weren't a lot of us doing this before? So I'm trying to take advantage of it, but you know, kind of like what you were saying at the beginning, Lisa, I miss my downtime too. I miss, you know, watching trashy TV or reading a book in silence, or like you were talking, Janae, meditating. I can't find space for that right now. And I'm working at it, but yeah.
Yeah. I definitely have some work to do in the not freaking the kids out about eating good food department, because I've been totally the fun police. Remember, that's me. But I've definitely been quizzing them, like, okay, these carrots, like, do they have, what vitamins are in them, you know? And so we've been talking about like what vitamins, and then I'll quiz them. Okay, what did the carrots have? Oh, they have vitamin A. Okay, like that's going to help us. And so I have been doing that right. But I definitely want to work on teaching them how to eat and care for themselves, not out of fear, but out of love for themselves. And I think that's where even I'm coming from. And I noticed it last week where I'm like worried about my health and their health and like freaking out. And I'm like, you know, my stepson doesn't want to eat any vegetables. And it's like, you have to eat vegetables. And I was like, really like crazy about it. And I was like, wait a minute. So I'm glad to have the deep breath. I'm lucky as a step parent to have a deep breath when they're with their mom. And when they come back, like that's one of the things I want to work on is how, and I don't know the answer, but somehow I want them to choose to be healthy because they love themselves, not because they're afraid they're going to get sick. And I think like I have my own health trauma. It's like it's PTSD from being sick and the health issues I've been through. And my diet is absolutely everything right now. And so I noticed that fear was totally triggered this last week with the kids and myself of like, oh my God, I have to eat vegetables. I have to get produce. Oh my God, I have to go out to the store and get produce. And you know, we have plenty of food at the house, but the produce is like an every couple of days shopping trip that I don't want to take right now because I don't want to take the risk. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, well, how do I go get these fresh vegetables only, you know, once a week right now, or even get them delivered or whatever that looks like. But also, how do I teach the kids not to choose to eat fresh vegetables because there's this virus, but to eat the fresh vegetables because their body needs it and it's nourishing and loving to themselves. And so that's something I noticed and something I want to work on. I mean, I haven't found the answer yet, but I definitely feel like I want to communicate things differently with them so that it's really a choice. So I think we've done okay with the education piece. I mean, the kids definitely understand like, hey, I need to eat, you know, a green vegetable. This grass-fed beef has this in it. And I'm really lucky I cook with all Ayurvedic herbs and they just love them. And my stepson makes the most amazing hamburgers with all Ayurvedic herbs. He can't get enough of them, the turmeric and the cayenne and the coriander. Like he just pounds these burgers full of spices and he makes them all himself. It's his own thing. And so they do all eat those. And so they're definitely attracted to and ingesting things that support their health. But it's taking it to that next level where it's self-love and nourishment instead of I have to do this for this, because even in all my spiritual work, I'm still very type A with that, like even myself. And I want to switch that for myself. You know, that's something that I realized in all of this isolation is I'm still eating out of panic, which is probably why my digestion is off track. Like my digestion's off track, no matter how many probiotics I take, because I'm not digesting, because I'm still panicked inside my body. And I do not want to put that on the kids. And so that's where, for me, that's my work right now, is how do I create a loving space where we're in love with what we're eating and the meal time, and not doing it out of necessity or panic or worry or whatever. So.
Well, but I think you were already cooking in that way. This isn't like a full shift, you
True.
know? And so kind of, you know, onto what Janae was saying, think about the energy that you're putting into the food as you're cooking it, and just think positive and think that you're not doing it out of panic or pandemic and all of that. I think this is just a normal time with the kids, and they'll feel that, or, you know, have them make suggestions or cook with you. My son is 9 and he's starting to get into that. So that's kind of fun, in a way. And then my youngest is more of like, she'll just eat anything, so I don't have to worry about what I cook for her. So, you know, just think about the energy that Janae was talking about.
That's a good point. Well, and the kids love Chopped. I love Chopped, and the kids love Chopped. And there is so Disney Plus is on the smart TVs, which is great right now. If you want to get the app, and they're having a deal right now because of the global event. And Disney Plus just came out with a show. My husband's actually the one who showed me. They have a kids chef competition show that just came out on Disney Plus. And so that's going to be fun to help them like figure out like, okay, we're going to make a mystery basket, because that's basically what we're stuck with right now with stores shelves being empty, is we're mystery basket cooking. And there's a way to like create something out of nothing. And how do we do that? Because as a chef, I mean, for me as a chef, when I look at my pantry, I know I probably could go 6 weeks without ever having to go to a grocery store. Do I want to go 6 weeks? No. But when you look at what you have, you can truly make something out of nothing. So I've like pulled stuff out of the freezer. I'm like, you know, I'm totally an organic, fresh person, and I'm really haven't changed anything yet. I seem to find what I need at the store when I've gone. I haven't overbought or done anything like that yet. Still haven't had to buy toilet paper. Probably won't for another 2 weeks. Like, wasn't really big deal. But anyways, I think, you know, teaching them how to, you know, make it fun and make it a contest is something that I think could be fun too.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, you know, going back to us and what you guys have both said about like, oh, I want to meditate and I want to do this. And even going back to thinking about our daily routine, like, what do you guys think we do for us? I mean, truly, I can tell you for me, I am making my bed every morning. I am keeping up on the cleaning of the house. I also, huge thing for me, because I'm psycho about cleanliness. But I've actually given myself permission to let things sit for a couple days and be okay with that, and take the time to do yoga or whatever when I wouldn't before. And the other thing that I've done is I've always done my spiritual work, you know, working with clients or whatever I'm doing when they're at school. And this past week, I didn't. And I didn't care if there was noise. I didn't care if they were running around. I still did my yoga in the middle of the living room while the girls watched Moana. And I still talk to clients. You know, obviously some of the things we talk about are adult driven. So there were definitely some behind closed doors things, but for the most part, like I just went on with my life. And that was actually the biggest shift for me, was to say, okay, I'm just going to do this anyway. And I'm not going to let the lack of isolation stop me from doing my work or whatever I need. But I'm just curious, like, what do you guys think? Like, how do we brainstorm for everybody that's listening what we do to take care of ourselves and not to be in our pajamas all day long?
Personally, I'm still working my way through it. I feel like I think it's shown me, for better or worse, all of the habits. So, you know, like the things I'm like, oh, because you're seeing. You're like, what are they seeing? So I think that's awesome that you're doing yoga in the middle of the living room. And I'm like, okay, maybe I need to do that. Because, you know, the other thing is we put all this pressure on ourselves of like, oh, we've got to teach them, we've got to do. And we are now in the being. You know, if you go back to that old paradigm and like some of these rituals and habits and traditions of the matriarch system that used to be in place, they weren't put in place with them thinking about it. Like, oh, I've got to show them they were just being, right? And so I think it's like some of that. And I need to like go back to even just, hey, you know what? Let the messiness be there. They weren't worried about that. And let the other stuff that really let you be you in this different way, because I think that was how those, that relationship that used to be closer. We used to be together more. And I actually do enjoy that, you know, someone, I don't know, it wasn't me. Someone said something about how we spend most of our time with strangers and now we're not. And there's like something really powerful and amazing about that. And I was like, that's true. But isn't it kind of crazy that like in some ways we have become strangers, even, you know, and even to myself. So I'm like having to be seen, and I'm having to see myself like everybody else.
Well, two things I want to say, and I'm sorry to jump in, but I have to. You saying they were just being, like, I got goosebumps all over my whole body. Like, when have we had permission to just be a woman? And this is our time. And this goes back to, this is the age of Aquarius starting. This is the rise of the feminine energy. This is the feminine uprising. And I think, holy cow, like you just nailed it right then. Like you just said it, Janae, like these women just were women. They were midwives and they were healers and they were empaths and they were teachers to their kids and they were cooks and they did all these things and they just were. And we haven't been allowed to do that. And how cool is that? And then the other thing I just wanted to say too, because you reminded me with what you were saying about what the kids were seeing. I was reading this book by Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, who is so amazing. He's a Tibetan shaman and lama, and oh my God. And he's actually doing cyber sanghas right now. So he's doing live sanghas where he's just teaching Tibetan practices. It's amazing. And anyway, I was reading one of his books about shamanism, and he said in the book, because he has moved to the United States, I think he's on the East Coast, I think. And he said the most profound thing, and my husband and I were just talking about it a couple of weeks ago before this all happened, and you just reminded me of it. He said that in the Tibetan Buddhist traditions, the Rinpoches, which a Rinpoche, for everybody who's listening and doesn't know, is a lama that's a recognized incarnation of a previous lama. So they have had this astrology done, and these tests they do when they're 3 years old, they test them based on the items that the lama had when they passed away. So they actually check the 3-year-old child and say, okay, the astrology says you're this lama, and they lay out all these items and they ask the child to pick out what's theirs. And if the child picks out the items that was that previous lama's, it verifies that they're the incarnation. That's how they determine who the Dalai Lama is. So it's really amazing. So anyway, he's an incarnation, he's a Rinpoche. And he said in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, it was always that the Rinpoches, you know, their children became lamas, right? They like taught them everything that they know. And these children were raised as lamas. And because he came to the United States and because he's in a different space now in this generation, he said in the book that he did not choose to do that. And instead, his choice was to practice when his child was around, not to keep it behind closed doors and not to press it on him, but instead just to be. And in being, he said what happened was his son would watch him meditate. His son would watch him chant. His son would watch him do these things. And he said, and over the years, his son wanted to become a lama. And what was so profound about this is that Scott and I, my husband and I, started doing yoga at home, and we do it at night. And this started a year ago when I got my teacher certification, and we would be practicing and teaching and doing all these things, and the kids would see this. And what's happened is, especially with my little one, the littlest, she now will come and kind of watch, and she'll like do some poses, and I'll be like, hey, do downward dog. And she'll like do it, you know, she like wants to participate. And so what you said, Janae, just to go on this whole on story, but really what I wanted to say was it's so true. Like what we do in front of them, that's what they see. And that is their influence. And even if we don't think that they're engaged, they actually, and Brooke, you said it too, your son's hearing and seeing everything. They're going to be like, wow, you know, my mom or stepmom, like, she's meditating. I wonder what that's about. Like, I have this gong behind me. The kids will come and they'll play the gong. They'll just come play it. We'll be like, oh, the gong's going off. We can hear it in the house. We're like, oh, somebody's playing the gong. But like, my husband plays drums, and my stepson went into the drum room like on his own and started playing drums the other day, like just started playing them. And so I think it's really important to share, like, I just feel like what we're talking about is really hitting home with me is we shouldn't change our routines because of them. But going back to that is how in the world are we going to get that private time at the same time? Like, it's okay to do those things in front of them, but then, you know, what happens when we want to rip our hair out? Because I don't know about you guys, but there's been some times there's been some fighting. And my husband and I were like, he's like, the economy. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. Like, I just want to be in my spiritual nonlinear reality. And I don't want to be linear right now. And oh my gosh, anyways, that was a whole lot, but that just stuck with me.
I think quiet time is still relevant. You know, nap time kind of ends after a certain age, but I've been kind of thinking, you know what, I might bring in, like, it's just the mindfulness hour, because I think an hour, any child can kind of handle that. Hey, we're sitting and we're playing quietly, because even though we all need this interaction, it's also important, like, we need that downtime. And it's teaching them how to just have that downtime and to not need that stimulus. They say that that's actually where a lot of the imagination comes up, is when you aren't trying to you're not like picking up the next thing and moving forward so quickly and not finishing something out. Even if they just want to remember in training, like the thought of like laying on the floor, just like, you just want to lay on the floor and stare at the ceiling. Like, but that's a real skill. I mean, it doesn't sound like a skill to lay on the floor, but look at what's happening right now when we're all forced to be a little more still. Mm-hmm. People are freaking out. So that's what I mean by it. It really is a skill to be able to sit with yourself and kind of have that time. So maybe it's quiet time. And like, if you want to read, we're not on electronics. We're not looking at other stimuli. It's just you and whatever you want to do. That's like a slower paced activity.
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Brooke? What do you guys do at your house? How do you get that time in?
Well, you know, my oldest keeps saying, all right, I'm done doing this. What can I do? What can I do now? What can I do? And I'm thinking, anything that you know I would say yes to, go for it. You know, and he was like, this morning he was, you know, just kind of a little off, and he was fighting with his sister. I'm like, you know what? Why don't you take 10, go up to your room for a little bit? And he kind of huffed up the stairs, and he's like, so boring. And, you know, I kind of heard him say under his breath, but, you know, 2 minutes in, I could hear him playing with toys in his room and creating and imagining things. And, you know, and it's sad that it kind of took him, you know, being forced to go up there, but, you know, they have the ability to do that. And I think it's positive to remind them of that. With electronics in our house, our kids have to earn it. And it usually consists of doing some exercises. They've got like a different rotation of things that they do indoors, like jumping jacks, or, like they have to run up and down the stairs, like things that you can do indoors that kind of get your heart rate going and keep you engaged, but, aren't super strenuous. They have to read, there's all these little things, and they'll try to ask every once in a while, can I go play, on the Xbox? I'm like, well, have you done your exercises? Have you read? Well, no, and so they know, that they're supposed to do it. But, we just kind of keep the philosophy of mind, body, and spirit, and try and keeping all of those three things intact. It's really helped that the weather's been nice to go outside and be creative. And the snow was melting, but now it's back. But, we're lucky that we're in this time. I mean, can you even imagine if we were going through this and we were in like a huge snowstorm where we couldn't go outside, we couldn't go for walks? I think about that a lot, that we're lucky that if we are going through this, that we do have the fresh air and the time, to spend outdoors, because that's a nice reprieve as well. And they've been pretty creative out there too. So
what do you guys think is going to happen? I mean, I know I'm a psychic and that's like a silly question, but it's totally a true question. Like, so we can assume that kids are going to be online schooling the rest of the school year, I'm sure. And my intuition is that we'll be really in this shelter in place space until Memorial Day, is my gut feeling, middle of May, end of May. In Colorado. I can't really speak for every state, but in Colorado, that's what I feel. And that kind of makes sense when I looked at the logic behind that. We're in the shelter in place for 3 weeks till April 16th. And then I think it'll be 3 more weeks after that. So I think we're looking at the middle of May before we come out of it. So kids are probably online schooling. So let's fast forward to, we get through the summer, they're out for the summer, and we're still dealing with the fallout from this event. And then school's supposed to start in August. Do you guys think we're going back? Do you guys think that there's going to be a different way of doing this?
I have to hope that we are. I certainly want to be careful. But I have to put faith in the fact that life finds a way. And as humans, we need to slow down and listen to each other. I think everyone needs to stop worrying so much about what their personal opinion is. And I don't mean this in regards to you two. I'm just talking about like the world as a whole, and think about the greater good and not make it such a he said, she said argument, because this is life that we're talking about here, and it's quality of life. And I just have to believe that we as people are going to do the right thing. I have to trust the fact that we're in a great nation and a first world country. And I don't feel like we've been living in one these past couple of weeks. It's very surreal. There used to be a lot of American pride in what we had. And I just wonder where that went. There's all of these, things that are going wrong, and that's a whole nother topic. But I have to believe that life will find a way and everyone will come together to do the right thing. I don't know if that will be the case. I do think we'll be out of school for the rest of the year. But then you take that into, like you said, wanting to start in August. And I mean, do we advance our kids up a grade? Do we not? Do we kind of keep people in limbo as to what grade they're going to stay in? They already kind of divide kids up in the grades by what their reading level is or math level is. I don't think I could keep that going because I'm not a teacher. So, there's a lot of different components for if and when we do go back. But yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at. I just have to keep that hope in my heart that things will get better and keep positive about it.
What do you think, Janae?
What do you think, Janae?
I don't know if I have an answer for that one, because I don't know if I feel like they're going to go back in August. But I think if we don't, I think it's going to, they're working things out. And with online, I want the social interaction more than anything else, because I do have the only child. But I think that on the flip side, we are going to end up, if they go back, we're going to be like, oh my gosh, and having an entirely different conversation of like adjusting to that. I think it's going to look, I actually hope it looks different in the fall. I hope it doesn't go back to what it was. Because I sit there and I think about, I don't want him going back to having only 20 minutes for lunch. I don't want to go back to what he had to eat during the day. I think we're going to, I love the organicness that Lisa brought up earlier. So I think, I don't know, I hope that some of the beautiful things that are kind of blossoming in this, I hope that they can carry forward, is really my overall hope. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think, the lady that can
future? I don't know either. I don't think we're going back to the way it was. I think it will look different, but I don't know what that really means right now. I think the messages that I've read and gotten myself is that we're truly moving into a time of self-governance and community and creativity. So my gut feeling is there may be a lot of people who start homeschooling their kids because of this shift, regardless of what the actual school systems do. I also think that there may be a lot of community schools that thrive. So like, I think Brooke and I were both in charter schools, and I think you're going to see those thrive because they're small and they're secure. Because let's face it, you guys, forget the virus. I don't even want to use the word of it. Forget that. There were 13 kids missing for 3 days in my fourth graders class at the beginning of the school year because they were all sick with different things. Flu went around, strep went around. They don't get enough time to eat. Like there's all sorts of things that are a bigger problem. And that doesn't include the shootings, the violence at school. So my gut feeling is school may start again, but the local, small, community-based charter programs, private schools, secure, smaller environments, I think are going to thrive and pop up everywhere. And the large schools, the really big public school environments, I think are going to diminish over time because it's just not supporting the health of the community. And I'm not even talking about just physical health, but the emotional health. So that's my gut feeling long-term. But for the school year in August, I'm just not sure because honestly, guys, I don't know what we think about this virus. I mean, the thing is, we're all shelter in place to protect our community from spreading, but it's already spread so many places. And when we go back out, it's still there. It's not like the virus will be gone and it's still going to spread. So I'm not sure logistically, because I'm not an epidemiologist. I really don't know. But as a psychic, I feel like there's going to be this wave and then there's going to be another wave in the fall. And so the astrologers and the energy of this entire, I don't even want to say pandemic, because I don't know if I believe that it's pandemic, but in this whole thing that's going on, we really are going to be going through it until December. And I believe that things happen to create change. And when we break our leg and we're in bed, the metaphysical thing is you need rest and you need to make changes. And so you end up breaking your leg, and it's such a long healing process that by the time you've healed, you're doing things differently. And that is what I believe is happening right now, is that things are shutting down so that, and they're going to be shut down. It takes 30 days to build a behavior. Okay. It takes 90 to create a new one. So we're talking, it takes 4 months of shutdown to have everybody stop what they were doing and completely forget what they were doing. Because right now everyone's saying, I want to go back to the way it was. I want to go back. I want to go back. Everyone except for all of us. And hopefully everybody who's listening right now, who's part of the community of light and the global summit, because what's happening is all of us are saying, we want to go forward. We don't want to go back to the way it was. I don't want to go back to how it was. I don't want things to be the way they were. I want to go forward and have the farmers markets flourish, because not everyone's going to the grocery store, and the natural grocery stores flourish because, you know, the how we shop and the way we look at things is different, and the communities flourish because we're actually talking to each other. I go on my trail almost every day, 3, 4 to 5 days a week. And I never see anyone on that trail, a biker will fly by, or a runner maybe. I've seen so many families and couples and people walking and being out in nature. It's like 1985. And I want it to be 2021. And so I think my opinion of where we're headed with the school systems and the routines and all of this is, we're going to be doing things differently until we cannot do things the way that we used to do them.
Yeah.
We can only do them differently. And I also believe that this rise of the feminine energy is, and this whole matriarchal conversation, and the three of us hold that space in our homes, is it is time for women to be the healer and the matriarch and the leader of the household that we always were. And it doesn't mean that men aren't important. And some men hold that role too. Like, that's the reality. But what it is it's about being organic, being creative, being authentic, learning how to take care of yourself, how to nurture, how to heal, how to be in nature, versus this linear, I've got to get up, I've got to get dressed, I've got to wear this uniform, I've got to go to school, I've got a class till here, I've got 20 minutes to eat, I've got 30 minutes to play, I've got to go back to work, I've got to do this. Like, that is a very linear experience, and we're shifting into a 5-dimensional reality. We are in a 5-dimensional reality, and it's like, holy cow, there is no time. There's no time, there's no space. So we're just going to float around and do our thing, and it's all going to get done, and it's okay. And that energy is not going to just go away. And so I don't know what will happen with school, but my guesstimate is there's going to be some kind of weird mix of virtual school come August, because I don't think that we're going to be complete with this virus. However, I will say, I know in Colorado, they've become very aggressive about testing and scalable testing. And I imagine that is from a functional medicine perspective, since this is a biohacking podcast, the government lifted the ban on all private labs just, I think, 5 days ago, for them to create testing, because they were like begging to do it, but there was some kind of law that they couldn't, and now they can. So there will be scalable testing for this virus available, I think, within 30 days. And a lot of these private labs are creating them now, and they could be as little as $7. So my read on this right now is offices will go back to normal over the summer. And I think I would guess that their rule is going to be, they may expect you to get a test and be negative in order to come to work. So I think there's going to be, and the school may be the same way. I'm going to guess that they're going to be like, you have to be clear in order to come in. And I think what's so amazing, because all three of us are healers, and what's so amazing is, do you guys remember? Oh my God, Brooke and I worked at Banana Republic together. Like, no joke, Janae. And I know, Janae, you've worked in the service industry. And how many times did we schlub ourselves to work when we felt like crap? I fainted at work. I don't know if you remember that, Brooke.
Yeah. Yeah.
You remember that?
Uh-huh.
I fainted and my boss like had to carry me to the stock room, and I had like crushing pneumonia, but God forbid I called out of work. We did not take care of ourselves. You're expected to just go and, you know, pardon my language, but damn you if you call out. You're not allowed to call out. You're not allowed to not be there. You're not allowed for self-care. Boy, did that just change. If you feel sick, you're not going to work anymore. And I think that is freaking fantastic.
Yeah, that's like, as an adult, that's what I'm looking forward to. You know, I kind of spent this week really kind of focusing on the kids in school and just letting them know that this is how it's going to be, and that it's going to be okay. But, you know, like this is going to be our new normal for quite some time. And I think next week I'll be able to balance it a little bit better. And really, you know, like I said, get up earlier, set aside some time to meditate. We've definitely been going on walks, but, you know, just like you said, dressing up, making your bed, all of those things, you know, I did, but maybe not to my best ability this last week. So I think this coming week, it'll be more about me. You know, what I kind of going back to our topic of, you know, do you think things are going to change, or do you think they'll ever go back to normal? We as adults are adaptable and we are appreciating this change. What I worry about is the lack of social time for the kids. And we kind of talked on that, Janae, a little bit with you too. You know, we live a block away from the park and we can't go. And it's one of those things where it's not a big deal, but it's important to kids. You know, it's important for them to play together. I know I signed my son up to go to overnight summer camp for the first time this year. And he's so excited to go. And I really just don't see it happening. They haven't canceled it yet because it's not until the end of July. But, you know, it's just those little things, those experiences, those memories that we all have that that's why I keep saying, I hope that it's going to get better, because I want my kids to have those memories, those cherished times in their heart. Sure, they're going to find other ways to make memories, but there's an element, you know, for the kids that I'm hopeful that we can get them back to those normalities. But to what you're saying, I personally am loving the slowdown. My husband needed to slow down, and he's just, I mean, he is one of those that, I mean, like the idea of staying idle on a Saturday or Sunday is like heaven to me, and it's torture to him, and he's getting better about it. So I'm like, yes, maybe this will be a learned behavior and it'll just, you know, stay that way. Then we can all be happy. So yeah, there's different points of view, you know, on all of this. And so getting your perspective on the timing of it is helpful, because I do kind of like to have your insight on what you see, you know, coming up. But, you know, the joke always is, if every psychic was right, or every medium was correct, then we'd all know everything. So everyone is going to have a varied opinion, but I definitely trust you a little bit more.
Well, I'll tell you what, the weird thing is that every psychic and channel and healer I trust all have the same opinion, which actually made me feel better, which is none of us saw this coming. I mean, the truth is we've all been talking about this for like years. I've been talking about this for 15 years. I have journals, which I'm going to try to pull out this week. I've got all these transmissions. I channeled this years ago, and so many channels have, but we're all sort of standing here going, I can't believe this is actually occurring, and that this virus was the catalyst for this, because it was not what any of us expected. We expected the energy shift, but we did not expect it to be a global shift all at once. That's ideal. So as a healer, we're walking around like, woohoo, this is awesome. Everybody's changing. It's so great. And everybody else is like, ah, but it's really amazing, because this is like not something that would normally happen. This is something you have to work so hard for. Like, this is crazy. And so I was relieved to hear that. But I can tell you, my cards and the energy in my readings, they're still great. But I'm letting everybody know, when you book a private reading, I'm really only looking at a month at a time, because the energy is so scattered and the acceleration is so fast, and it's all a moving needle. But I have consistently gotten that there is an uplift around Memorial Day energetically for the nation. And then there's another uplift about September, and it's sounding like astrologically October is when we start to feel the like reprieve, and we start to, come out of our homes. And then December 17th is the actual day of the marked new age, according to astrologers. So what my cards are saying, I feel in Colorado, come Memorial Day, we're probably going to be outside, and it will feel normal in the sense that I think restaurants and businesses and things will start to open back up based on whatever testing has become available. That's my sense. I think the virus will still be around. I think it's still going to be a real issue. I think there's still going to be mass amounts of people leaving. But I do think that Memorial Day weekend is going to be a real celebration of coming out of our homes. I do think that our shelter in place is going to continue until about I do think we're going to get a 3-week extension on top of this 3 weeks. I think that's pretty much a done deal, because I think so many people are going to, come forward with the virus in the next 2 weeks, that they're not going to feel comfortable allowing people to just wander around after that, because we still haven't contained it. And there's a lot of us, like I work from home, you guys are at home. So there's a lot of us who have been isolated and we're fine. And like, I don't know, it's not really been a big deal. There's been a few times where I've coughed and I'm like, oh God, and then it's like, okay, I've had those moments of fear. But there's a lot of people who were still out at work last week, my husband included. They were still going to an office until it was like, okay, no, really, you're not. So I think there's a lot coming. And, but I do think that the summer will be more open. And I think similar to the flu, I don't know, because this virus is a little different, obviously, in how the nature of it, but similar to the flu, the summer, there's not the risk that there is in the winter time. My concern is that going into August and September, I think we're going to see a little lift of the virus. I feel this energetic bump, because we're going back into colder weather and people are starting to feel more like they can take risks. And so there may be this that happens that kind of puts us all inside again, and then we'll move through it. So we're just gonna have to go month by month and day by day. As soon as I feel solid about my own information, I've been sharing it, and I'll just continue to do that. So those are the things I feel I feel solid on that information. There's other stuff I've gotten that I'm just kind of sitting with. One thing I will share is I am getting that it will be less than 100,000 deaths in the United States. We'll see how right that is. I'll just put that out there. I think it's going to be between 50 and 80 is kind of the number I'm getting right now. So their initial stats where it could be up to 500,000. And I don't see that happening in the US. And I do feel the energy of the virus, the strength of it slowing down, and we'll see how right that is. But I feel the virus strength slowing down, but I feel the isolation energy ramping up. So I really do want everyone to be careful of violence and fear-based energy over the next 3 or 4 weeks, because this is going to be bumpy. It's going to be bumpy. That's the best thing I can say. So those are my psychic opinions about all of that.
I think the violence is probably a fear that I have suppressed, because you see movies or TV shows and you read books and you're like, oh, that would never happen. And it does, and that's just sadly part of human nature. So I do think that there will be a sector of people that just cannot handle this isolation. They cannot handle the downtime. They don't like being told what to do, and don't want to be told what to do any longer. And then, you know, I have a cousin who is married to a police officer, and he was saying that unless you are driving on the curb, you know, and like slamming into a house, a lot of cops aren't wanting to pull people over for minor infractions because they don't want that contact. And so the fear is that if the violence ramps up, you're taking that energy from law enforcement and first responders, and it's going to a negative spot, and we need to save it for something else. So I think you asked earlier if I had any fears, and I think you just hit on it for me, for sure.
And that could be like a whole separate podcast, because I'm super frustrated that we're shelter in place, but there's an exception, and that's to go buy a gun, and guns are selling out. And what does that even mean for all of us? I mean, my husband and I looked at each other and thought, well, we don't own any weapons, and I don't even know like what that means. Like, I don't. And I can tell you, I can read you what I channeled from Lucinda. She said, and this is in my April flow on my website, she said, many human souls will react to this isolation and fear. This may manifest in violence, anger, and despair. It is imperative that all light workers, empaths, truth seekers hold space, generating light and aiding in the calming of fear energy from April 8th to April 23rd. And I'm going to tell you guys, I don't really get specific dates like that. She was very specific, April 8th to April 23rd. And so that's
like an extension of the sheltering in place right there.
Yep. So, and I don't know where that all came from. Obviously, it just was what I got. And that's what she talked about. And so it's a real thing to think about. Like, I was thinking, like, how do we keep the kids safe? And do we need to have something, you know, we don't have a security system, you know, what do we do? And so it's just, we just have to take a deep breath and get through it. And we're probably in neighborhoods where we're safe. But we're going to see stuff going on, especially if the stores cannot get stocked and get where they need to be. And I think that will come. I'm hoping, because everyone's staying inside, that the workers will have the chance to finally stock the shelves and get things back in place. I don't think we have a shortage, and I didn't get that when I was doing my channeled messages either. There's really not a shortage. It was the message I got from Spirit. And I want to remind everybody, you know, they tell us that we're fine all the time. And I'm like, oh, I'm not fine. I owe this and I owe that. And I'm freaking out about this and that. And they're like, well, you're fine. You have everything you need. So keep that in mind with the Spirit's energy. But what I channeled was truly that no one's going to go hungry, but no one can live in excess. And so the message I really got is, between now and June 1st, we're not going to be able to live in excess. You're not going to be able to just go to the store and get whatever you feel like and buy as much as you want. There is going to be rationing. There is going to be shelves that are empty, but no one's going to go hungry. Nobody is going to go without. It's not going to be that kind of experience. And that's, you know, middle-class experience, because there are people that are going without now. There's hundreds of thousands of children who don't have food because they can't go to school and have school lunch. Mm-hmm. So there's a way bigger issue than that. But just in general, you know, I don't think our supplies are dwindling as I think there's excess. I mean, I think we've always had excess. I think there's so much in circulation in the world, and especially in the United States, to be specific. Like in the US, we have so much excess of everything that I don't think that we're going to run out of rice.
Yeah.
What I do think is, you're not going to be able to go buy that 5 bags of rice that your fear is telling you have to have. You know, you're going to have to buy what you need when you need it. And I'm going to tell you, this comes back to faith. You know, Paramahansa Yogananda said in the autobiography of a yogi, he had this whole chapter, and I highly encourage everyone to read it. And he told his brother didn't believe that he was talking to God. His brother didn't believe that he was a spiritual being. And so Yogananda said, okay, I'll make you a deal. I'm going to make you a bet. And he said, I bet that we can go into this town and come out, and pardon me, I don't remember the specifics because it's been a while since I read the book, but we're going to go into this town and we're going to have everything we need all day long. And we're not going to need to use any of our own money. And we're going to come home and it's all going to be because God divinely timed it. And it happened. And the brother said, if this happened, I'll become your disciple. And they ended up going and having this like fancy feast. Like they met all these people, they got on the train magically. I mean, all these magical things just happened. So I highly recommend reading Autobiography of a Yogi and that chapter in this time where we feel like we're not able to do those things. And I've had my own experience of that without even realizing it until I was at the store a couple of days ago, is I haven't changed my shopping pattern at all. The only thing that's changed is I'm not getting my Tokyo Joes. Instead, I'm having to cook absolutely everything at home. And I can tell you, every time I go to the store, it's like the weirdest thing. And my husband was with me when I realized what was happening, because I didn't realize it the first time I went to the store, but the second time I went, my husband was with me. And it was like, gosh, like the gluten-free, like pasta made out of spinach that I always buy just happened to be on the shelf. The kind of rice I always get, happened to be one left. Like I have not had to compromise any of my normal shopping patterns yet. It just sort of has all been there. And I mainly shop produce, and there's this overabundance of produce when you go to any grocery store. There's tons of fresh vegetables and fresh fruit. And even Dr. Terry Walls, who is an incredible doctor who's, healing MS patients and people with brain trauma, says it's better to have the fresh fruit, even if it's covered in Roundup, than it is for you to have canned fruit. So get the fresh produce, like get that stuff. And so the only thing I've compromised is I maybe am not getting all the organic, but quite frankly, I've even gotten mostly organic. And my mom is in Arizona, and she said that Arizona's farmers markets are still open and flourishing, and that you just can't touch the produce, that the farmers at the farmers market booths are wearing gloves and they're packaging everything for you so that no one's touching the food. And my hope is that will carry through into our state and other states, because farmers markets open in 2 to 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be able to go get fresh fruit and fresh vegetables and also fresh meat that is local and taken care of and conscious, and from farmers, that loved those animals before they had to take them for food, And so I think there's this whole thing that's happening that has nothing to do with the fact that there's no ramen on the shelf. I'm really like going on a tangent, by the way, but
no, they actually did a story about that it appears that Americans are going off their diets and eating comfort food through all of this. And, like I allowed myself a day, my birthday, to have what I wanted. And now it's like, okay, but now it's like back to a routine, back to good in, good out and all of that. But yeah, it is funny that you experience that. I am curious in Arizona, how are they handling the crowds? Because I know every time I go to the farmer's market, it is elbow to elbow crowded people walking around, which is great for business, but not so good for these restrictions. So I'm just curious as to that.
Well, so the information I got from my mom when she was telling me about the farmers markets and the story that was out there is there are people that are pretty angry that the farmers markets are open and that people are there. But the people that were there that were interviewed for the news said, like, I've been coming here and supporting these farmers for X amount of years, and I'm going to continue to come here and support these farmers because they need it right now, because otherwise they're going to be out of money and they're not going to be able to produce this food. Mm-hmm. So everybody that, supported the farmers was like, they're managing it and they're using gloves and none of us are touching anything. And like, that's the best that they can offer. So we'll see what happens this summer. I'm hoping that it doesn't affect us, because I was really looking forward to being able to participate in the local farmers. Yeah. But that's what they said. So that was the news I got. I mean, it's all secondhand, but
where there's a will, there's always a way, right? It's whatever we put our attention on. I feel like that will work out as long as people are asking for it to work out and needing it to work out. And I think you're right. I've always seen so much produce every time I go into the grocery store. But I mean, and they might have to get creative. things are probably going to even change within that. They could be, you know, having to supply more of like a website kind of thing where you're going in beforehand and like, here's what we have this week. What do you want? And you're having to think about that beforehand. And here's your pickup window. So they can kind of manage the size, like there's so many, I mean, I'm not even someone that does this. There are so many possibilities. And I want to like go back to the wheel that you brought up actually earlier, Brooke, and to speak to your summer thing. I get kind of that sense that summer, we all still need to be smart. It's still going to be around, but I think summer is going to be summer. I feel like just like the wheel, like there's like, think about the seasons, think about everything. It's all connected, right? So what happens in summer? Everything is in bloom, everything comes out. And I think we're not going to be any different from that. And then like, when does it start to close up again in the fall? So, I mean, like, look at just how that's connected again. And I also want to go back to the fear thing. I think that is a real fear. You have to listen to that. You have to be smart. We have to be listening to our intuition, but at the same time, remember what you're putting out there. And sometimes we have to mirror that for each other and don't attract that in. I'm not saying like, be smart. The whole thing is to be smart and to be like more in touch with ourselves, more in touch with our families, more in tune with the earth and those cycles. But don't go out and get a security system, even though you're hearing that, because then you're, in my mind, then you're attracting that. And the reason I say that so specifically, and this is like, you know, like I said, I've had a lot of weird jobs. I've had like probably every weird oddball job. I've driven for Uber and Lyft. And, you know, you would go in, and my husband had different views on this because he would worry about me I was smart. You know, I'm not saying go do that right now, but I would go and like my bread and butter people that I would drive around, it was like the students over at college, these like little cutie patooties. I didn't go out late. You know, I didn't go out and be with the drunk. It was like, make good choices, like go back to the basics. That's what we're being forced to do right now. And there would be people that in their car, they would have the camera. You know, we've got to keep everybody like, I've got to keep myself, I've got to protect myself. I've got to be safe, right? And they would have that camera. I have to tell you, I did not. And my husband was like, maybe we should get that. And I was like, no, because for me personally, and that's a personal choice, everybody has to make that choice on their own. I felt like that would be putting out, that would be inviting that. And I really believe in that. And I had the best experiences. I mean, I really did. And if I had had a camera in my car, I would have been inviting something else into my space. I did. I had like people like got them from the airport, and they were like therapists that like came and checked out these camps every year for like therapy. And the next day we're like, can you come pick us up tomorrow? And I was like, you'll get a good person. And they're like, no, we want you. So I went and I like drove them around, and they were bringing me into all of the places. And this is Janae. Like, no one knew I was like the driver. Like, but that's humanity at its best, you know, but that's because that's what I was inviting in. So don't forget to keep inviting that in and looking for that, because it's out there. And just like, you know, these new differences, if you need to look at it almost like you're on vacation, think of yourself in vacation mode. And I thought of that because of the going to a different town. Doesn't everything kind of work out? Because you're at the mercy of just what's around you. And we're having to like, we're not at control. Is a total illusion. It's total illusion. We were never really in control in the first place. And so it's really it's continuing to let go of that. And then when you're in vacation mode, you're like, I don't want control. I don't need control. And look what happens. And like, maybe play with that. This, you know, like when we're in this period of like, we're not in control, and actually that can be really amazing. So just, I had a lot there.
No, that was good.
Good.
Yeah.
So we have just a couple minutes left. Brooke, you got some parting words. Janae, those were good parting words for sure.
I guess just keep hope, keep onto what Janae was saying, keep that energy that you want in your life and hold that in your space. Be smart about your choices. And, you know, I've been signing off all of my emails with stay healthy, stay happy, stay safe. You know, I think if you can keep those 3 things in mind, you should be okay. I did want to ask both of you as healers to kind of save a space. We talked a little briefly about kids that aren't able to get food because they were relying on that for lunch. Something that crossed my mind the other day was we're all happy being home. But for some people, home is not their safe place. And I want to keep a space in your hearts and energy for those kids that maybe are struggling with being home because it's not the best place for them. And we just need to, you know, try and lift them up in times like this. So just, you know, keep those people in mind.
So good. It's such a good point. Well, I just love you guys. And for everybody listening, this is Buddhist Biohacker, and my website is BuddhistBiohacker.com, and my YouTube channel is YouTube.com/Buddhist Biohacker. So it's all the same. And we will be back on, there will be a few different podcasts coming up this week. I'm going to do one that's on health tips. And that one, we're actually going to talk about over supplementing, because that's definitely something going on right now, and how to manage your health through your diet only when you're shelter in place versus how to protect your immune system when you actually are out and exposed. So those are 2 very different things, as well as managing the virus is a very different thing. I have several clients who have it and are through it. I have a few clients who are well. It took 3 weeks, but they are well. So I just want that out there, that is going to be coming up in the next couple days here. We'll be talking about that, because there's 3 different ways to manage your health right now, depending on your environment. And we don't want to go around wasting our supplements if we're sitting at home with our husbands and our kids and nobody's talking to anyone or doing anything. And it's our Global Healing Summit this week, oneheartoneearth.net. Thank you, ladies, so much. I love you. And bye to everybody who's watching on YouTube. And we'll be checking in. All of us will check in and comment, and, you know, comment to your comments and all those things. So if you have questions or you want to sound off, you can comment on YouTube as well. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.